Hello, Mo. Hi, guys.
Hi, really good to have you with us today. I'll introduce Andy for people who don't know him. Andy is doing a lot in the space, to be honest. He's generally speaking, he's heavily involved when it comes to writing the guidance, and he's a very big advocate for information management, or broadly speaking, he's one of the most knowledgeable people I know in the space. So I'm really glad to have him here. He also leads BIM and Digital within ALEC, which is one of the largest contractors in the Middle East. And if I may say so myself, he's effectively one of Morta's biggest ambassadors. So he's effectively an honorary ambassador, because we don't have it formally. But yeah, no, thanks a lot for joining us today, and really looking forward to having you share your perspective and your experience for the wider community.
That's all right. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. And yeah, afternoon, everyone. Really good to be here. Is my screen sharing okay? Okay, so yeah, so I'm going to be talking to you about database-driven information management, one at a project level, but also looking at sort of corporate business level and some of the things we've got going on. It's going to be a mixture of a few slides, but then I'm going to actually dive into not a live demo, but a live overview, I guess, to keep it a little bit more interactive, hopefully. Okay, so I mean, I think it's always good to start with something like this. So, you know, we're all on a journey in our organisations and as an industry, busy digitizing and digitalizing with the end goal, but there isn't an endpoint really, is there, to digitally transforming? What does that mean? So digitizing is changing analog to digital or data. Digitalization is actually focusing on process and maybe re-engineering or refining processes based on exchanging and managing digital information. And then, of course, after doing that, then there should be new opportunities, maybe business models, revenue lines that, because you've gone through that transformation, become available. But there certainly isn't a hard stop to this. It's going to continue as technology evolves, industry evolves. It's a never-ending process. Also, we have, of course, digitalization through BIM, as we all know. I mean, I'm preaching to the converted here with those of you in the community. But the nice thing that BIM has done for industry is actually really get us focusing on structured information. So data that can be queried or analyzed, it's machine readable and human readable if we present it right. But of course, the BIM process does wrap in unstructured information as well into a process. So whether they're PDFs, images, documents, etc., it's about managing that information better and making it available. So this, I guess, this is, but Mo's already presented a version of this, but this is my take on things. Yeah, you know, I'm sure if we look in all our companies, we've all got some form of ERP system, enterprise resource that probably handles payroll, finance, and other things, procurement. We'll have a number of databases, perhaps, that may or may not be linked to some of that core data set in the ERP. And then, as Mo said, we've got thousands of point solutions across industry, less in each company, but you know, whether you call them CDE solutions, low-code solutions, whatever it is, internally developed products, etc. So it all looks rosy, and it looks like we're able to use and reuse data. But again, as Mo said, we're probably, when you look under the hood or dive under the water, the industry is so dependent on Excel. There's so much Excel out there, and it's data that's trapped and essentially wasted to a point. Used once, may or may not be right, and is wasted. So certainly in ALEC, we're on a bit of a mission to try and reduce the amount of Excel and start to leverage data properly. So I mean, and we shouldn't rubbish Excel, because it's actually a very good tool, a very powerful tool, but for the right purpose, I guess. You know, if you're trying to track things, whether they're registers, trackers, schedules, probably Excel isn't the best tool. Certainly if there's more than one person that needs to input to it. Of course, Excel, you no matter what you try and do, it's fraught with human error. Things break quite often. Data's trapped. Validation can be quite clumsy. And then there's also, it's a file, there's the temptation is to share it via email, and you see Excel's going backwards and forwards around distribution groups and emails all the time. So you lose the audit trail, you use that immutability. So what we decided to do, to start with in my department, in my team, was in terms of BIM documentation or resources, we said let's try something different to Word and Excel. We arrived at Mortar as a solution. Why are we using that? It's no low code. It's highly configurable. The UI is pretty effective, and people can get hold of it. It looks and feels quite nice. We can check data. Validation's really quite easy. We've got formulas and scripts. And actually, we end up with a suite of dynamic documents that are interconnected. So there's data that's reused across tables rather than keying it in multiple times into individual documents and trackers. As Mo mentioned, you've got integrations with the usual suspects, and therefore you get automation or semi-automation, and you can still export and import to docx and CSV. So it's quite flexible. Now, you're not supposed to read this at all. This is just an example. After we built what we call our IM templates hub, I actually had to go back and try and map this out to try and explain to people where the relationships were between the different tables. And this is just to show you actually how connected some of these things are. So all of the boxes in the diagram there are tables that are either select lists based on other tables, or they have a lookup for the data in those tables. So suddenly you realize, God, when working in Word and Excel, how many times you key in the same information and you're not reusing the data. So we started out, of course, building our BIM or IM documentations, documentation aligned to ISO 19650 as a main contractor, lead appointed party. The things you see under the IM tender response and appointment are the required things that ISO asks us to produce. So all of those are built in Mortar. Those of you that are pretty clued up with the standard may notice there's one missing from the tender response, which is the capability and capacity assessment or statement. We decided there wasn't really much value to try and push that into Mortar, because we often at tender stage get an Excel or some form of questionnaire from the client that they require filled in and sent back to them in that format. So there wasn't much value in looking at that, but everything else you see on the screen there is digitalized and is delivered via Mortar. Mortars, we also obviously out in this region, we have ACONX, it's used pretty much in every project, as well as ACC, and we have integrations to Mortar for those, so we can start to leverage the data and track and match data between platforms. Now, we've been using Mortar for probably the best part of 2.5 years, maybe a bit longer. Quite early on, after about 5-6 months of building these things, starting to use them, we looked at actually how much more efficient we thought we were in terms of producing these things, and that's actually a very conservative estimate. It's probably more than that, but at least 5 hours a week per person. We were more efficient. We were saving 5 hours a week rather than traditional Word and Excel management documentation. So it's certainly delivering value in that regard as well. Okay, so the ones that you see with a hyperlink, essentially, those are the ones I'm just going to pop into and do an overview to show you what they look like. So I'll start up here with the pre-appointment BIM execution plan. Hopefully this pops up on the same screen. It has. So again, this is our templates hub. So the process here, so we've got all of these templates built in the hub. The process is when we start tendering a project, I'll duplicate the templates hub and we'll rename it, make it project specific, and start to work on the project specific information in all of these resources. So there's effectively our contents for the pre-appointment BIM execution plan. If I just expand all sections and just do a quick overview, you see you've got text in there, you've got diagrams, embedded table views. And I'll just pause on this table. This is a very powerful table in terms of what it informs the other tables in the hub. So it's basically who's who on the project, from client all the way down to the packages that we would appoint. We record organization name and originator codes. So this then will link to our task information delivery plan originator codes. It links to package trackers, also permission tags, things like that. So once this table's filled in and complete, it informs probably about 4 or 5 other tables where you're reusing that data. I mean, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but there's the usual things you'd expect in the BIM execution plan, workflows, etc., etc. And again, the important thing is we try and certainly invite people into this from other parties. So we want the client's PM, our subcontractors in here, but of course a formal record needs to go up onto the CDE or ACONX in this region, so we can export to docx, like I said, to take a static document out, but it's kept live and maintained in a database, which is the important piece. Just pop out of that. Also, we've split out, as ISO 19650 suggests, we've got a separate mobilization plan. Let's keep the BEP as agile as possible. We don't want it 80, 90 pages. We want a project manager to be able to pick it up and piece through it and actually want to read it, or not fall to sleep trying to read it. So yeah, mobilization plan in here. We'll have an introduction, an example of a dashboard we'll have, assuming we get appointed, where we'll track appointment mobilization. And the usual things we check, the training the team will do in the various areas, education and software training, mobilizing technology, configuring, etc., etc. Quite simple, but pretty effective. What happens then, that if we're assuming we convert the tender, that hub remains, and then we'll just further develop the BIM execution plan with the more detail at appointment stage. So the one we use for tender just gets developed further. We also produce a detailed responsibility matrix, and again I'll show an actual project example of this. So we've got 2 sections here. Detailed responsibility matrix. So this is linking through the different packages. If I collapse this, you can see all the different packages on the project. We can expand that. We can see the organization. We can see onboarding dates, etc. if they were filled in, which they're not in that particular one. We can see the elements, the type codes, Revit category. In this example, the teams are using Revit in this package. The kind of things we expect: required parameters, junction boxes, etc. LOD, and are there COBie parameters required? So relatively simple, but again, you can present different views of this table for different stakeholders depending on what they need to do. On this project, we're actually getting the supply chain to fill in some of this information. So it's a more collaborative process. And then we've got a view down here for dates where we're asking our planning team to actually keep these dates up to date in terms of when packages should start their engineering, what's their actual start date, finish dates, etc. So again, trying to wrap in a few more people into the process to collaborate. Okay, moving on to the next one. So, I mean, information delivery planning, as Mo said, I think most of the more to customers, that's where you start typically, and it's super powerful for that. I'll really quickly just open again one in our template project. So the nice thing with this is we can have dynamic permissions. So in this example, in this hub, I carry the digital construction permission tag and the operations tag. So it's internal teams as well as external to us. And then you can start to build out your deliverables in here with the title, start to select the various codes you need to build up the information container ID based on the project's naming convention. We configure more to that, of course, and then that starts to build that ID in here, which is a formula. Just coming back off that. And then, of course, it's one big table or database in the background with different views presented. So as long as all of those dynamic TIDPs are being developed, that returns into a MIDP view. Again, this is going back to a project example. We can then embed a dashboard that works off the data in Mortar to present it clearly. So there we go. We can see a dashboard there that shows deliverables, missing data from the MIDP, and actually also tracking the status of various documents, because again, this is now integrating with AConnect, where the documents are actually being uploaded and approved or rejected in that case. And you can scroll down and filter and manipulate that dashboard and just go and see what's approved with comments. You can go by author or package, etc. If you look at the table view in Mortar for the MIDP, if we go here, it'll take a little while to load. 6,000 rows in there at the moment. And again, you can collapse and go to a specific package. Let's go to first Vex here, MEP works, document type. So we're grouping by document type and package here. There's the information container ID, there's the description. And if I come over here, these columns from document status onwards to the right are from the integration to AConnect. So this synchronizes daily with AConnect. If that document number or information container ID here exists in AConnect, it will pull the metadata through so we can see approved with comments, we can see when it was uploaded, who was the company, etc., etc. So already you're automating your planned information versus actual. One nice use case that we did on this project by my manager on the project, a really good idea. She asked me, could we actually have a filtered view for a 4-week look ahead, so we know what deliverables are planned to be expected in the next 4 weeks. So that was a really powerful one. That was quite a simple config and a separate table view that just basically did a formula to say, well, take today's date plus 4 weeks and give me a filtered view for everything that's coming in the next 4 weeks. So this is dynamic. I can see I've got 621 deliverables planned to be submitted in the next 4 weeks. And then if I go in tomorrow and some of those have been uploaded, they may come out, that number may come down, or it may come up again, assuming they're keeping their TIDPs up to date. So I thought that was a really nice, simple, but quite powerful use case there. Okay. Where are we? And then for mobilization, I'll just go into there. So we've got again a tracker that's built in Mortar, which is again this is one of the things that feeds our reporting dashboards. But again, quite a nice simple use case. Again, a pick list based on that original table of your packages. It pulls through via a table join the organization for that package. We've got the engineering start and finish dates or package kickoff meetings, and then we've got a cheeky little formula in this mobilization status column that says once you start the project induction, all of these other steps should be completed within 2 weeks, otherwise it's overdue. And as you can see, it says these things are in progress. A few of them are completed, some of them are overdue. So we're tracking, we try and get an organization onboarded, project induction done, task information delivery plan started, access to our technology systems, the first model transferred from design to construction, and then that element status, something else we do, and that should all be completed in 2 weeks, and then they're on board and they're running and they're able to produce their information accordingly. Okay. Okay, that's the ISO 19650 resources. I'll now move on to a few other use cases at project level. So project directory, again, I'm sure the go-to there is an Excel tracker that probably the site administrator maintains of who's who on the project. I mean, that was just such an obvious candidate to put into Mortar. Very, very simple use case. I mean, this example, we've got a PDF uploaded there, which is the wider project team, who's the client, who's the consultants, who's the et cetera, et cetera. But then in terms of managing an up-to-date directory of our own staff on the project, that full screen, we're just grouping by department. You can see across the various disciplines, who's who on the project, what's their role, what's their email, what's their contact number, who are they reporting to. And that, again, just a nice simple use case rather than an Excel that's saved on a SharePoint site or on the CD and that's downloaded and updated. It's really accessible to everyone. There's a link on the homepage of the hub when you go into Mortar, and you can easily quickly go and see who's who and go and find the information for them. Okay. I'm going to spend a bit more time on this one because we've recently got this to stick. It took a few attempts to get it to land, but we've got a project risk and opportunity register in here that's actually really taking quite well now. So again, I think on our projects prior to this, where people were recording and tracking risks, but there was no standard for it. You know, again, typically it would be managed in some form of Excel sheet and then often translated to PowerPoint for meetings for top risks. So we had a look at how we could make this a bit smarter and a bit more effective. So we've got here, there's just that's a PDF just showing the procedure of how this should work. I won't go through that, but the way we configure this, we've got 3 sections. So section 1 again is a dashboard. Section 2 is different filter condition views in Mortar of the register, and then section 3 is where you'd actually go and enter your risks. So I'm going to start at the bottom in section 3. Again, this is dynamically permission controlled. So in the same template hub, I've got that same permission tag, same 2 permission tags. Normally I'd have 1 on a project if I was on the project, but for argument's sake, I've got digital construction and operations. So I can see I've got 2 dummy rows there to start entering risks. So I'll just complete one of these really quickly. So let's say digital construction, my risk description is unclear and or I'm just making something up on the fly here. Information requirements. Obviously, I'd be more specific if I was doing this for real. What's the potential impact? Delivery team may make assumptions and delivery may not be what client needs, for example. Okay, risk category. So again, this is a select based on the different typical risk categories. For this one, I'll be digital construction BIM, but this is a multi-select. It may also affect handover, I guess, or subcontractors, for example. Who's the risk owner? Again, this goes back to that first table where you've got your different organizations on the project. I want to just put me, Alec, for this one. Give it an initial impact score. So I'm going to say, I mean, this isn't going to be that high, but I'll say I'll make it major and possible. That gives me 4 times 3 equals 12 and colors it amber based on the logic in the risk score table column. Is it a threat or an opportunity? It's a threat. What's my strategy? We're going to try and mitigate it. What's my mitigation plan? Discuss further with client. And then you can do the same, give a residual impact score rating. Just for argument's sake, I'll fill that out as the maximum one. Who's the action owner? Joe Bloggs. I'm now opening this risk. What's my target close date? By the 15th. Any comments? So now I've done that. If I come back up to section 2, I've got then condition sections for let's see our open risks and opportunities. So as you can see, this is now filtering out and grouping on open close. There's the one that I've just entered. So there's a nice easy view to what are all our open risks. You don't have to search through a big long list of things. And again, similarly in your dashboard up here, that would show the same. Now this is the template project, so template hub. So I've just taken a snippet of one of our live dashboards as a static image, but this is how it would start to look in Power BI. So you've got the same table layout as I've shown you below, but then it starts to give visuals on, you know, which departments are raising risks, which have been closed, which organisations are affected. So hopefully that's quite a nice example of how agile we can make Mortar. It's not just about BIM documentation. You can pretty much go at any use case out there. Okay. We've also got, again, this is sensitive, so I'm not actually going to show any of these, but we've got payment registers running on a couple of projects, delay notification registers, LOA and SCA trackers, etc. So anything you want to track, manage with multiple contributors, it's certainly very, very effective. And then some really unusual ones we've got going at sort of business or corporate level. So believe it or not, newsletter content collection. Never had this in mind. I remember probably a year ago or so, What we do, there's a monthly newsletter that's produced by marketing. They defined across the business a number of newsletter content ambassadors. So, you know, who from this business and this project would typically be responsible for providing input to the newsletter. The traditional process of that was there was an email that went around every month to 20 odd people. Some of those people would, with an attached Word form, fill out the Word form. If you had something, email it back. Marketing would have to then try and aggregate that all into something logical and start to produce the content for the newsletter. So we sat down and said, look, how can we make this a bit more efficient, a bit smarter? So let me just quickly pop into this one and show you what that looks like. So we've got those same content ambassadors in the hub with their right permission tags. So what the process now is, marketing will send the same email initially out to those people, but with a link to Mortar saying, please respond with any content you have. So we'd come to here, click on the link. We come down here, and there's different topics depending on what the news may be: site or project, team or personal, departmental, etc., etc. So for me in digital, I'd come under probably departmental. We're presenting the same table as a form, so I can start to answer these questions, share some data, upload any irrelevant documents or attachments, or provide links, submit the form. When I submit the form, and this is actually using Power Automate in the background with Mortar as well, that would then trigger a notification email back to marketing saying Andy submitted some news, with a link that will take them down here into section 2 to that same piece of data I've just sent them, and they'll be able to come in here and see, Andy submitted something about the departmental update. And also create a log, so you can see all of the things that everyone's submitted under each here. This is marketing only, no one else can see this. I can, because I've obviously built the hub, but it also creates a nice structured log of all the news that they've collected over the term. But that's not the end of it. So marketing now have the information to generate that information. They start to then build it in their own content, and then there's an opportunity for them. We're going to this one here, content approval. So I'm now putting my marketing hat on. I've developed the content that someone sent me. They then select the department business unit it's related to, the date, draft, attach their draft newsletter content, whatever that looks like. It will automatically pick up the approver name, an email address. They'll submit the form. Again, then the person would then receive an email linking them to down here. So here's some of the previous ones I've done, and I'd come in here and go, okay, let's go and have a look at what they've done. Have they interpreted that right? Oh yes, there's the news. I like it, but I've got a couple of comments. So I'll give it approved subject to comments, write my comments in there, and again, submit the response. They'll get the notification. Happy days, we're all done. So I think that was probably our most unusual use case for using Mortar, but it works quite nicely. The last one I'll show you. So we do have other things. So and again, there's more than this. These are just sort of the key ones that are really working for us. We've got an ESG EcoVadis survey tracker. I'll show you that shortly. Employee daily transaction tracking from Labour. We've got our history of all the projects we've done, the clients we've worked with, the gross floor area, etc., clients, consultants in a huge database in Mortar. And we've got a tender tracker that's also got a Power Automate flow to notify heads of department when tenders are coming in, what we're tendering, what's the status, etc. But let me just go to this one. So I think ESG as a department, they're a group function, and we have core ALEC business plus I think 9 related or sister companies. So ESG have an absolute mission to gather all the data they need to report on across all these business units and departments. So again, this was quite a simple use case, but it just helped, and we've cleared this out now. But maybe if I go here, it just grouped the categories, the themes, the questions in this EcoVadis tracker that was required. And again, we just gave each person access to their sections identified over here for them to respond with data about whatever that question is, any supporting attachments, evidence, etc. So again, just a simple but effective way of gathering, collecting, and organising information from multiple different people into something easy that you can track and manage better. Yes, quite a big table. That. Anyway, that's enough live demos. We come back to here. So that's pretty much me done. I mean, just in summary, I guess, if you're looking to approach this, and again, there are other tools other than Mortar, as Mo mentioned at the start, but I think there's definitely a value in trying to eradicate Excel where it isn't the best tool for the job. So, really try to get out to your projects, frontline project delivery, understand where Excel's being used for tracking or schedules, and see if you can suggest an alternative. Move to a cloud-based no low-code solution. That's pretty obvious from what I've been shown today. Definitely create standard templates wherever possible. Mortar provides some really good standard templates, but of course you can just configure your own from scratch, whatever works for your business. And then enable automation via integrations, formulas, and scripts, and really trying to connect your data sources to dashboards to then help visualize that information. Okay, that's me done. Thank you very much for listening.